Turning to Detroit, the new year brought encouraging news from the police department. Crime stats from 2014 show an overall drop in violent offenses and in property crimes. There were 300 criminal homicides recorded last year compared to 332 the year before. All right, the number of robberies dropped more than 950, and there were 545 carjackings last year, down from 782 in 2013. So all in all, definitely a move in the right direction. I do want to talk about a report that came out in the Detroit News talking about the number of sexual assaults and how the numbers are a little bit different in a minute. But first, overall, impressions of these are finally the shifts in numbers that we want to see, Nolan, coming out of Detroit.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a reflection, and we talked to Chief Craig last week. I think it's a reflection of more police presence in the neighborhoods. People are seeing cops. There's a greater recognition, I think, that if you call the police department, somebody's going to show up. And you know, those are the things, this community policing that has been successful in New York, LA, and other places will work here if we can put enough resources behind it.
All right, so the community policing seems to be working, Stephen. Do we still need, though, more officers on the force?
I think you probably do need, I think you need a lot more officers to patrol the city. The city's still as large as it always was, even though the population has dropped significantly. I think when you're looking at these numbers, it's also important to look at them in terms of the rate, not just the raw numbers, and that's the thing that really matters. Per 1,000 people, for instance, what are the crime stats? And they don't, you know, when you take into account the constant population loss in Detroit, the homicide drop looks a little different. The rate is not dropping as fast as the numbers, but we are moving in the right direction for the first time in a long time, and I don't think we should ignore that either.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about these are the lowest homicide numbers since 1967,
numbers, sure.
But that's when we had over 1 million people.
The rate's down a little bit, but it's not down as dramatically as the numbers would. The raw numbers would suggest, and so you just got to be careful about that.
And it's still more actual homicides, I think, than New York City.
Has,
so
right?
I mean, to crow about.
Right, we're not.
Well, it's nothing to crow about, but and I think looking at numbers is always very difficult as well, because it's always depends on, again, how you're looking at them, and that goes to the point of the story that was out this week, taking a look at sexual assaults and how they're classified in the FBI crime stats. Is not all sexual assaults are classified in that way, that the numbers are actually even higher than what has been recorded, Nolan.
Yeah, and there's some curious method in which if a rape occurs during another crime, a shooting, for example, or a rape and a murder, the rape doesn't get recorded or doesn't get counted in the stats, and I think it distorts the level of problem. At the same time, you know, you've got this backlog of rape kits here that they're trying to clear up out of the prosecutor's office, so you have serial rapists still out who, if this evidence were processed, you could take off the street. I think sexual assault's a huge problem in Detroit.
Yeah.
Which is still a major issue, that you're looking for nonprofit dollars to be able to solve crimes which should be solved by your government entity.
Well, and this gets back to the county government situation. What is county government for? Why do we have it? I would say public safety is probably the number one on that list, and yet Kim Worthy cannot get dollars from the county executive office to prosecute these rape cases.
But this wasn't a problem that the county necessarily created. I mean, these kits were sitting on a shelf in a police unit. I think that this is government responsibility to solve this. We shouldn't have to be going out here raising foundation money to arrest criminals and solve crimes. I think the state has an obligation here to come in a bigger way and clear these things up as rapidly as you can. I think Kim Worthy has an obligation to work a little closer with the state police and others than perhaps she has been, to let go of this a little bit and let others who are capable of helping. But in terms of processing the kids, let others who are capable of helping help. But in the end, this is a taxpayer responsibility.
Sure.
And a state can find 100 million or 50 million, whatever it is, for movies, ought to be able to find 10, 20 million to put criminals behind bars.
All right.